Good fun. Wow. Wow. I love how fast everybody rushes from the waiting room right into the show. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Looks like we've got folks from all over the world. That's fantastic. We'll let everybody's screens just kind of get centered here. We've got a terrific presentation for you guys today. All right, Sam, you got the recording started?
Yep.
Oh yeah, we're gonna record this so you guys can go back and check it out. So good day, everyone. Hello and welcome to the SlickPic Academy. This is where we invite renowned photographers, artists, and creators to inspire and teach us all their magic goodness, as I put it. I'm Kevin LaRue. I'm joined by my colleague, Sam Burson, and we're so happy you guys could make it today. I don't want to say this morning because I have no idea where you are. But before we begin, I want to encourage you to also stay tuned after this event. If you're not familiar with SlickPic, we're going to share just a few words about it. And we might also show you some of our newest AI-based innovations and helpers. We've been putting a lot of that into the platform to help artists and creators just like you guys take some of the burden off, right? So without further ado, I want to introduce you to our good friend, Roxanne Overton. Now, she's a fine art photographer, author, and speaker, and of course, workshop leader. And she comes from the Pacific Northwest, the PNW, as we say. And while she shot all genres of photography, her passion is what she calls shooting time. And if that sounds mysterious, I'm as eager to learn about it as you are. I know on today's webinar, right here in the SlickPic Academy, she'll be introducing and exploring the elements of time, visualization, and intentional choice through the use of what's called in-camera movement or intentional camera movement. Please give a round of applause and a warm welcome to Roxanne. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, and I know that Kevin has more to say, I want to thank SlickPic for sponsoring today's session. It's a real joy for me to be here. And I know he's going to tell you a little bit about SlickPic, but I also want to share my experience. I was lost on the web. I didn't think it mattered who my web hoster was. I thought all that mattered was how well designed my web page was. But what good is that if nobody can find it? And SlickPic changed my world when I switched to them because the world found me. And I can't say enough about how important that is. Today we're going to focus on ICM, what it truly is, the depth and range of this approach to photography, and how understanding it forms one of two essential foundations for making techniques work, because it is about so much more than just techniques. Let me turn this back over to Kevin, and I appreciate everybody saying a hello. But while I'm doing my presentation, I hope those little windows aren't going to pop up or you're going to have me losing my train of thought.
Well,
So, Kevin, take it away. And when you're finished, we'll get started with my end of things.
okay, well, I was going to save my remarks for the end so we can jump right into your work, but I would recommend if you're going to be distracted by the chat window, just close that down.
I
Once
don't
you,
know how to do that.
well, go ahead and share your screen, and then let's see what else is distraction. What else is a distraction?
Okay.
I'm so excited.
All right. You guys can see it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. All right. Looking good there.
Okay, good. All right. Um, let's get started. We're here to talk about intentional camera movement. It's a wonderful approach to photography that kind of changed everything for me. I got my first SLR way back when, and the first thing I did was got out my manual to see how to take multiple exposures. And the first 36 pictures I shot on my roll of film were all multiple exposures. I never really hungered to take regular photography, But as I got involved with ICM, I found that it was essential that I understood composition and how to make a really good photograph because ICM really runs on the back of good photography. So if you're thinking that you can just shake a camera around in blur and come up with wonderful ICM, it doesn't work that way. This is an extra skill to build on top of the skills you already have. Let's go ahead and see if I can make the screen live. Oscar Wilde says, be yourself, everyone else is taken. And that's the joy of ICM. We're all different and we all come up with different results. Intentional camera movement, or ICM, is a creative photography technique that transforms ordinary scenes into painterly abstracts, expressions. By deliberately moving the camera during exposure, photographers break free from rigid details, embracing emotion, spontaneity, and of course, motion. I took this picture in Cambodia a few years ago, and I was walking along a street and I was headed for a lake because I'd been told that they had beautiful sunsets. And I rounded the corner and saw the lake, but I also saw a line of tripods that went on forever. And it ended up being a spot that photography group leaders took their students to or their participants to take a picture that was clearly staged with this woman out in the water. And as I walked along the line of tripods, trying to find a good vantage point for myself, and I did not have a tripod, my intent was to do some ICM work. I heard the group leaders calling out, you want to be on F8, you want to have your ISO at this, you want your shutter speed here. And I thought, they're all going to go home with the same picture, maybe a little bit different perspective as things curved around. And then I also noticed that kind of weaving themselves in between the tripods, there were people with phones taking pictures. And I thought to myself, they at least have a little bit of a chance of going home with something a bit more original. But I was determined I was going to come home with something really painterly. And did I get this on my first try? No. It took me about 15 shots to get the effect I was looking for. And this is a mixture of her movement and mine. And it turned out to be exactly what I was looking for. It evokes feelings and emotions and not just facts. I love catching motion, the fourth dimension of time and space. I was standing in New Jersey looking across the river at the New York skyline, and I found myself setting the camera to 125th of a second and holding it rigid to take a regular picture. And I thought, what on earth am I doing? A million people have stood where I'm standing, taking this picture of the skyline come from all over the world. I'm going to go home with something original. And so I reached into my ICM toolbox and I came home with this, which for me evokes how I felt standing there looking across at this glorious city and its beautiful golden sunlight. Camera movements can be anything from vertical, horizontal, diagonal, push forward, step backward, stop and start, panning, swoops, zoom, or total freedom. How do you make those choices? It depends on the subject. It really depends on how the lines and the shapes are forming. And there's a real art to choosing which way you're going to move to get the maximum effect of ICM. Part of the problem is people start doing vertical or horizontal and they don't move beyond that and get stuck in a route because they don't understand what's possible with different movements. And that's what we're here to try and explain today. What will motion do at a 15th of a second? Before I show you, I want to stress that this is my 1/15th of a second with my camera, with its sensor at this particular point in time, and all of those weigh in on what the results were. I wanted to move to the point where those ladies were standing because what I was interested in was just this rectangle back here, just catching a little bit of this. And I wanted to see what would happen at vertical. Venetian blinds. What's interesting is these are LED lights, and we don't realize it, but they pulse constantly, faster than the eye can see. But look at the white lights on the side. It's because they're lined up differently, and so we get solid light. So it depends on what the pattern of the LED light is, but they're going to contribute to the effects we get. If I do horizontal, all of a sudden the white lights turn into sideways Venetian blinds, and the blue lights get a steady, non-pulsing look. This is a diagonal, and it's an interesting shot because I learned something from it, and I love it when my camera and my kind of mistakes teach me something. Why is it that on the left-hand side of the screen, we have much more motion on the blue and white lights, where on the right side of the screen, they're much more condensed? Well, if you notice this upper corner versus this corner, it will tell you that my camera wasn't perpendicular, lined up parallel to that wall. It was slanted a little bit, not by intention, just by the fact of how I was moving. And what I learned is the different angle of how you point your camera at a subject can also have an amazing effect on the outcome. This was a free form, just circling the camera to see what would happen. And then a perfect zoom. And the fun thing about zooms is right dead center of a zoom, if you've held it very still, you get really good focus while everything blurs out exponentially. So it's also a really fun type of movement to use with your camera. Our perception shapes reality, but reality is not reality itself. What we see is influenced by what we choose to focus on. We don't view the world as it is, we see it through the lens of who we are. Every moment of perception is uniquely shaped by our individual perspective and the fleeting nature of the present. If you stop and think about it, the present is now. Only now, the present I was talking about is the past. Time moves that quickly. But when we leave our shutter open, we catch some of those moments of time. And that's what's so precious about ICM and what differentiates it. The other thing is, I think we've all gone out to shoot with one or two other photographers, or maybe even a group, loosely, not in a class. And we might all stand on a street corner or in front of a field and shoot, but when we show each other our pictures, they're all different. Our photography is based on what we choose to focus on, and that is really predicated by who we are, what our life's experiences have been, and what interests us most as individuals. It's important to understand all of this when we're out taking pictures, because our brain limits us to what it thinks we want to see. And if we want to see more, we have to think broader. Brooks Jensen talks about it. We never see a photograph all at once. Our vision doesn't work that way. We have to look at all the parts of the photograph and then assemble it in our mind's eye. This is one of the fascinating things about good artwork. It always brings forth that element of imagination and requires you to use your mind to really see it, because your eye can't possibly see it all. What on earth is she talking about? Let me direct your eyes to what might look like a typo, and what I would like you to do is look at that middle dot. And I really don't want you to look away from that middle dot while I'm talking to you right now. I want you to stare at it very intently, and I want you to each think about how much of that paragraph you can read. Not very much, can you? It's amazing how narrow our field of focus is. Now I want to direct your eyes over to the right side and take a look at the picture. And when you glance at it, there appears to be a lot in focus. But if you rest your eye on this little intersection here and don't take your eye off of that, all of a sudden what you thought was in focus isn't. Why is this important to ICM? Because it's how we naturally see the world. Our peripheral vision is where we find what we're going to be looking at any given time. And the rest of our world is quite blurry. It's all very subconscious to us. We don't think about it. But there's a recognition in good ICM photography that, yes, this resonates. And that's why, excuse me, see if I can keep my voice going this morning. I shoot a mirrorless camera, which gives me instant feedback in my viewfinder. When I get a result I really like, I stop shooting and I evaluate it. I apologize, I've been having problems with my voice. When I'm evaluating this image, I evaluate it on the same parameters as traditional photography. I look at impact, composition, and technical. And I think about that because a good composition is essential in appreciating ICM. What I would think about this particular image is that it has immediate impact with light and color. There's a very clear subject with a nice path of light leading me into the image. I like the mix of bold lines and soft atmosphere. It adds energy to the shot. Movement speed is good to tell the story. There's enough movement to give it a wonderful atmosphere of capturing time, but yet the story is very clear and there's a lot of depth to the image. So ICM really isn't different from any other kind of photography in how you evaluate its quality. And it's important to evaluate it to keep yourself on the right track. Ernst Haas said, "I'm not interested in shooting new things. I'm interested to see things new." And I agree with him. You can shoot the same thing over and over and over again, unlimited ways, and you can make it tell different stories, all kinds of wonderful things. I came across this colorful wall, and I looked down the side of the street, and I saw this guy walking along, and I thought, okay, I'm going to catch him inside of one of those frames of color. And I was thinking probably the red one. And I had tried my ICM speed out a little bit to see how much movement I wanted. And as I clicked the shutter, the cyclist came racing through. This was not planned, it was serendipity, right time, right place. You can see my movement when you look at him, but look at what her movement added to the shoot. It made an entirely different image, and she was really going fast. Fast enough that we got a lot of warmth and a fascinating picture. ICM isn't new. Ernst Haas did it often starting in the 1950s, and I'm utterly fascinated with the intimacy he had with his camera, that he could actually imagine what he was going to get. I wasn't that talented when I started ICM. I actually had to have feedback in my digital camera. I tried it in film, but I wasn't rich enough to buy that much film because I couldn't learn by the time the film came back what my movements were doing for me. But Ernst knew, and he was able with film to capture wonderful ICM images, knowing exactly what his outcome was going to be. And it's again, not a new thing that we're talking about here. It has a history dating back, I've seen ICM from the 1920s, so almost 100 years old. My own moments range from a 20th of a second to 10 seconds, often with the help of a neutral density filter. The neutral density filter isn't a number that you reach for. It is a darkness that you need to get proper exposure. There is no formula in ICM. I have a comment waiting for an answer on Facebook this morning asking me for my settings. I'd like to know your exact settings for this scene. That isn't going to help him a bit because he doesn't move like I do. He doesn't have the same camera I have, and all sensors react differently. And he doesn't know what the light was. And giving somebody measurements without knowing what the light was is kind of meaningless. And I'm trying to find a polite way to say that. Bill Brandt says photography has no rules. It's not a sport. It's the result that counts no matter how it is achieved. This was a 2-second shot. It was a 2-second shot of a single mountain. The rest of these are echoes based on my movements through a 2-second exposure. So ICM can run a tremendous range of appearances, of technique. Blocks of color and shape caught my eye. It looked like a great spot to work with ICM. I have nice anchors here, but I also have alternating yellows, oranges, yellows. And when I put my camera in motion to catch it, I got a beautiful ICM abstraction of an autumn scene. Dorothea Lange says that frame of mind you need to make fine pictures of a wonderful subject. You cannot do it by not being lost in yourself. And for me, when I'm shooting, I'm walking in liminal time, that piece of time that is between the past and the future, walking through an ever-changing present. And when I have that thought in my mind, it changes my perspective on how I shoot and what I choose to shoot. ICM style is unique to each individual. We all see and move differently, and it's exciting to find artists with mysterious style. Mark Reeves did us all a great favor, those of us who love creative photography. He is a member of the Royal Photographic Society. It is probably one of the most conservative photo clubs in the world. It's also one of the most respected, and what the Royal Photographic Society recognizes is also looked at very carefully by other camera clubs. Mark put in a bunch of sailboat pictures for a fellowship, the highest award of distinction that the Society gives, and his sailboat images earned him that fellowship award. And it changed everything about ICM becoming a respectable genre and not something that judges in camera clubs scoffed at. He really did us a wonderful favor. Nicholas Expandt, he also teaches at Santa Fe workshops with me. And when I first saw his work, it was like, whoa, what's this guy doing? He works only in Lightroom. So there's no layering or fancy anything going on here. What you see is what he gets with his camera. And what he gets is mesmerizing. He knows his camera so well that as he moves it, he can keep the tree in pretty darn sharp focus while putting the rest of the scene into amazing blur. Whenever he posts a new image, I'm mesmerized. I just have to study it and see what he's been up to. Sam Stapleton, for almost 50 years, shot in his backyard, the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, with his camera firmly mounted on a tripod. Sam and I collaborated on a book together, about 12 years ago when Google Plus was still around. We'd never met. At the time, I was doing black and white street photography, and he loves telling cynical short stories. So he sent me an email and said, would you consider having a book? I'll tell the stories based on the picture. And we thought it would be fun, and we spent about a year putting it together, and we became great friends. And Sam and his wife invited me out to visit them in Knoxville, Tennessee. He said, let's go shoot the Smoky Mountains together. And I said, I'd love to. And I flew out, and he took his trusty tripod, and I stood next to him with my wiggling camera. And when we got home that night, we looked at each other's images, and he was captivated by what ICM could do. And he went on to become an amazing ICM artist. He really leaned into the genre, and his inner artist was released, and he did magical things. He also embraced multiple exposure in very original and wonderful ways. And it's so much fun to watch somebody's evolution. And he just gave me the ride of my life watching what he did. Eric Malm is a very long-held exposure guy. Sometimes he'll hold for 60 seconds before he sweeps off into the sky or across the sea to grab texture to lay over his original image where he's holding, imprinting on that sensor. I showed this because it's a real, not that I think it's a wonderful picture, I'm sorry, Eric, but it shows very clearly what he was shooting. But you can also see he went off to the side to gather light and trees and drag it in over the original image of the building with the birds sitting upon top of the bar grid to get an idea of what he's doing and how he does it. Bernard Lim has a magical way with flowers. They mesmerize me. Look at those. Aren't they just exquisite? I mean, we look at lots of flower photography, and it's not that it's not undeniably beautiful, but the magic of ICM adds an element of the soul of these wonderful creations. Andy Gray is a great ICM photographer, but his real talent lies in composite work. He goes out and he shoots ICM, ICM, ICM with the intent of going home to Photoshop and putting different images he's taken in and layering them. And he's got an exquisite eye for composition and composites. And the good news is he shares it with anybody who's interested. He has a YouTube channel, and you can tune into him, I believe, on Tuesday nights and watch him live, or you can just go to his channel and watch any of his recorded programs that he's done, where he starts you right at the beginning, shows you all the individual images, and every single step he takes in Photoshop. You'll learn so much. Shauna Perkins lives by the sea, and does she ever capture amazing images? When I see her work, it makes me want to just pack a bag and move to the ocean. Exquisite work. Bob Hills was one of my former students in the workshops that I do, and he took all of the information that I shared, all of the techniques that I shared, and he developed a style that is uniquely his own. He shoots rodeo, and he shoots it differently than I've ever seen, and he captures the magic of the action in an unbelievably wonderful way. It's always a joy to see what he's going to come up with next. Kaisa Cyrene, she shoots all kinds of things, but I chose to show you a couple of her abstracts because she does them beautifully. She gets depth and line and shape, and they're just beautiful photographs. This was shot at 2 seconds. Handheld always, I don't own a tripod. And it's a matter of holding it and then moving it depending on what's around you and what you can pick up and gather to overlay with it. Steve McCurry says, my life is shaped by the urgent need to wander and observe, and my camera is my passport, and all of us who know his work so well realize he's used it a lot everywhere. I was in Cambodia when I shot this in one of their little flatboats. We were just sort of drifting down the river and admiring the great sunset. And there were bushes and stuff in front of me, and I was kind of waiting and hoping the sunset wouldn't go away because I wanted a wonderful silhouette to put in front of it. And we finally came to a little row of fishing huts, and I was able to get the shot I wanted. This was the same Cambodia trip that I did with the Cambodian water lady. And yes, when I travel internationally, I shoot ICM and multiple exposure because I want to capture the soul of the countries I'm visiting. I let everybody else capture the stark reality. Whispers are caught as we let time gather on the sensor, and this is a combination of light, my camera motion, her movement, and my life perspective. And nobody else could duplicate this shot. I could give them my camera settings, it wouldn't matter. I can't duplicate this shot because the light would never be quite the same again, even if I could find the lady and put her in the same spot. And it's important to remember that there are so many elements that go in to what ICM gathers. This is a 2-second handheld single frame shot using a technique that mimics multiple exposure. A lot of people will look at this and assume that it is multiple exposure, but it's not. And this is one of the most joyous ways of shooting for me. I love how I can gather as I move my camera to get different aspects of the same subject and show it in such a unique way. It really gathers the atmosphere and the feeling of what it was like to be by these hills next to the sea. Everything is fair game. No subject is out of bounds. Anything can be interpreted through motion, giving the viewer a different perspective. I shoot without prejudice, and every genre is open to me. My movements here not only caught the light on the building and did wonderful things by pulling it out, it also gathered movement in the sky and gave me lines that I had not expected. I love the serendipity of what the light is doing and how it adds to what I'm doing, sometimes in surprising and wonderful ways. Perspectives can take on a whole new meaning with ICM work. A not so simple in-camera multiple exposure with the second exposure shot upside down. Hey, Bill Brandt said it, there are no rules. And you might think I was shooting the mountains here, but I wasn't. I was framing the light, and that was my intent. And I purposely underexposed it so the mountains wouldn't interfere with the frame of light and the lovely shapes that I was able to frame it with, and the leading lines going into it.